I saw Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Fuck.
Oh, maybe not.
Yes, so I saw Five Nights at Freddy's 2 opening night at midnight. So this is like kind of late. It's been a week, and I didn't really plan on making a video. But I can't get this movie out of my head for all the wrong reasons. It's not good. Here, let's start off positive. The animatronics are cool. All the Jim Henson animatronics, actual physical animatronics. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the rest of this movie. Yeah, where do I even start? This film is hardly a film, and if it tells you anything, me and my girlfriend saw this film. I kind of wish she was here so I could make this video with her, because I'm probably gonna forget some things because it's been a week, and nothing happens in this movie of real note. It's just like scenes happen, and it doesn't have really much consequence on the rest of the film. It's just a series. Once you start like picking apart this movie, it makes no logical sense even within its like own self. As you can see, I'm kind of a Five Nights at Freddy's fan. I've read these books. That's as far as I went. These are the original 3 books. And then I own the first movie. I thought the first movie was pretty fun. It's not like the best movie ever, but it's fun and enjoyable to watch. This was almost a 2-hour movie that I felt like was 4 hours long, and I just wanted to end. It's like it's a movie that's 20 minutes too long, but 20 minutes too short. It's a constant, like, if you're a Five Nights at Freddy's fan, you're like, oh, I know that thing. And that's all this movie is. It's sequel bait. It doesn't have like it has a general plot, but a plot that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm gonna kind of talk about this entire movie, so I guess spoilers. So if you care about the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 movie that I don't recommend you go see, spoilers. So even if you're like comparing this to the games, right? You have the puppet. The puppet is a bad guy in this film, which the puppet in the games is generally a good guy. And then you have Michael Afton, who shows up in 2 scenes, but is a villain in this film. We'll get into that a little bit later. Which Michael Afton is also seen as a generally good guy. So the biggest red flag that should have happened, because I was kind of with this movie for the first like 15 to 20 minutes, I think. But the biggest red flag is that it was written alone by Scott Cawthon. He did the screenplay exclusively by himself. I don't know if you can see that, but that guy right there, he made the games. And God, should he never write a script by himself ever again. He seems like a nice enough guy from what I've seen. He's a very private dude, but he can't write a film. And I feel like adapting Five Nights at Freddy's to the game specifically, that game is a prequel to the first game. Well, you can't really do the prequel route, but they still keep like, oh, this was the first restaurant before the other Freddy's, which kind of leads into this like weird convoluted stuff that doesn't like kind of really go anywhere. There's no reason for this to be the Freddy's before that. They're only doing it because that's how it's in the games. But I imagine when Scott sat down, he was like, okay, I need to have a villain for this movie. And then you look at Five Nights at Freddy's 2 and you go, oh no, it's a prequel. We killed spoilers, I guess, but we killed William Afton in the last one. Well, fuck, we can't use William Afton because he's dead. We can't just bring him back because we need to bring him back for Springtrap. If you're watching this, you have no idea anything about Five Nights at Freddy's, I'm going to say probably a lot of terminology that is just going to go over your head, and it's whatever. Springtrap is like the resurrected corpse of William Afton, which is like the main bad guy in this series. Whatever. And so you go, oh, fuck. Well, let's make the puppet a bad guy, because the puppet's introduced in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, so we'll introduce this puppet here. And then the puppet is an actual physical animatronic. And this whole beginning sequence sucks, in retrospect. It's like this little girl who doesn't really have friends, but she has like Vanessa is her friend, which is like a main character from the first one, a main character in this. And William Afton is her dad. And so she knows all the bullshit that William Afton does. And the small girl Charlotte, sees William Afton kidnap this kid. And so she goes to all the adults and is like, hey, this kid's in trouble. Please help. And they're like, fuck off, little kid. Get out of here. And so she decides to take matters in her own hands, and William kills her. And this like really over dramatic scene of like her coming out and like falling through these trapdoors, and it's said that she really likes the puppet, and then the puppet is like holding her, even though the puppet is like really wiry and like on strings. I don't see how it holds her, but whatever. And so, and then that's like the most concise bit of plot in this film. God, I don't even know where to start. So you have a bunch of returning characters from the first film. Michael and Vanessa like kind of have a thing going on, and it's kind of cute. Like they had this little dinner scene. Like I was kind of with the movie up until this point. They have this little dinner scene where they're both like, hey, we need to like get past this. Like it happened and it sucks and your dad's dead and he did some awful shit, but we'll get through this together and we'll move on together. And so he's like, go try the dream thing. If you haven't seen the first one, Josh Hutcherson, Mike, I'm going to be saying Mike and Michael. Those are two completely separate characters when we get towards talking about the end of this film. So don't get too confused. And so Mike is like, hey, try this dream thing. He did a dream thing the first one to try to figure out where his brother went. Try the dream thing. And so she tries the dream thing. And this is like really one of two scenes that we get with Matthew Lillard. He's not in this movie a whole lot, which I mean, I guess makes sense. He's dead, whatever. And it's kind of like an interesting thing of her like trying to escape this, like the grasp of her father. And like, that's the most kind of bit of interesting character development throughout this entire film. No one else has, did I forget a scene? I forgot. See, this is the problem with this film, is that all these scenes you can like kind of rearrange in any order and it makes sense. But we'll get through all the stuff that like actually has story before this movie starts to like devolve into scene happens, character goes to place, scene happens. Why does this character go to this place? Oh, well, this thing happened. And there's like a weird thing in this film that we're going to kind of get into later. And I know there's supposed to be like suspension of disbelief, but when your plot is this flimsy and is like picked apart and dissected so easily, to the point where it makes absolutely no sense, I can't really like look past that. I can only suspend my disbelief so much. And so she does the dream thing. Baby, which is an animatronic, gets teased. Okay, Baby just is randomly there, which like, that's like my main criticism of this film, is that it's a bunch of, hey, remember this, and stuff that's not going to pay off in this film or the next film, depending on how they do it. If they like want to stay with the games, Baby's not going to show up until like the fourth fucking movie, if we get that far. And so we go through this dream sequence, we wake up, and the scene that I forgot about earlier is Mike has this friend. Hello, this is Matthias from the edit here. In editing this video, Mike's friend is a guy named Jeremiah, which is a returning character, which I had no fucking clue that this was a returning character, but he's at the very beginning of Five Nights at Freddy's 1 when Mike is a security guard, and he's his fellow security guard. So this is a returning character. I don't think that really changes my opinion of this film whatsoever, because it's just, he just kind of shows up, and I did not remember him from the first film, and they didn't really establish that he was from the first film. So he's not necessarily random guy, but returning character. Okay, back to it. Helps him paint his house, where he comes over to help paint the house. And then we go to a scene later where they're in the exact same room. They didn't do fucking anything. They didn't do any painting. He's like, Vanessa's crazy. This character will disappear from the film until the very end when he is needed again. That's also another problem with this film. Side characters are introduced. They have absolutely no development whatsoever. They're only around for a scene or two. and then they only show up when they're needed for the plot to move forward. Plot to move forward, and so he's like, Vanessa's crazy, woo, disappears from the film, and then that's like all the dinner scene stuff happens, and then we have Abby, I think is her name, the younger sister of Mike, and she's kind of like, oh, there's like a weird plot thing where Mike's aunt from the last film, which I thought died, is apparently like spreading rumors about like the Freddy animatronics from the first film, and so like that gives a revitalized interest into the Freddy stuff, and so they decide to host like a Freddy Fest, which is only a single scene that takes place in this entire thing. It's like built up to be this really big thing, and nothing fucking happens. And so they kind of talk about that to be like, it's baffling because it goes nowhere. Nothing in this film goes anywhere. Like, so you learn that, like what do I even talk about? It's like such a hard movie to talk about, where I have to like almost dissect the entire thing. The entire plot of this film is that Charlotte wants revenge on adults, or she says specifically parents, which we'll kind of like talk about. We'll touch on here in a little bit, because like even her plan doesn't like necessarily follow that. And so she says she wants to get like revenge on adults. And so you learn that there's these ghost hunters that Abby sort of watches, that is very YouTuber coded, but this film takes place in 2003. So YouTube isn't around at that time, and it's very YouTuber coded, and like I feel like that should have been reworked. And the main girl on that like ghost hunting show that Abby's watching, she's doing press for this film, and she's only in this one scene. They cut to these like van people, and it has the kid from the Chucky TV show, not the main kid, but like the stepbrother that dies in the first season. It was kind of nice seeing him, but I can't remember his name off the top of my head. And so they're like, oh, we have this contact named Mike. He's going to let us into the location. And they show up, and it's Michael, and he makes a note to correct them to say Michael. And so he lets them into the FNAF 2 location. He's like, oh yeah, but it's actually really haunted. Go check it out. And so these characters like start like the girl of the group turns off the music box, which I guess was which holds the puppet as to like sleep. So Charlotte is asleep in the puppet. And so she goes and turns off the music box, and the puppet is released, and the puppet takes over this girl's body. And it's a thing where it's like the puppet possesses other people, and they get this like weird makeup effect, and it looks fucking awful. But the puppet is a physical thing. The puppet is another animatronic. And so like we don't know where this physical thing goes. And so when they let the puppet out, everyone starts dying. Like the restaurant turns back on, and it's kind of assumed that like Michael wanted this, but then it's like, why didn't Michael have to lure these like ghost hunting kids here to turn off the music box to wake up Charlotte? Like, why not do a thing where Michael shuts the music box and like maybe like threatens her with the music box to be like, hey, if you don't work with me, I'm just going to open this back up and you're going to go back to sleep. So do what I say, kind of stuff. And Michael would have been way more involved in this film. It's Michael Afton. It's William's kid. I was very tempted to lean over to my girlfriend and be like, if this is Michael Afton, I'm going to hate this fucking movie. And this is like where the movie completely loses me. And so you learn that Charlotte... So we're going to get to a really big like plot thing here. Oh, you also learn that like Abby goes back to the original restaurant, and you learn that they've been gone. Like Mike doesn't know where all the original animatronics are, which is another important thing that we need to talk about towards the end of this movie. He's like, I don't know where they are. And God, this is what I'm saying. Like all these scenes could be in like a different order, and it really doesn't matter. Abby's in a robotics class. Now, if I know anything about like classes, she's like probably in middle school, if I had to guess. I think she says she's 12. So I think it's about like middle school, if like not maybe like early middle school, late elementary school, I don't know. And so she's taking this robotics class, and Wayne Knight is like the head of the robotics class teacher. And this entire plot line is in this movie is so Wayne Knight can die later. So Abby is taking this robotics class, and she's not very good at it, and blah, 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 blah. And she's like telling these stories about Freddy and like stuff like that, and she's like, doesn't keep it a secret. And so there's like a thing where she's talking about, oh, Mike says that he's gonna like take the time and fix my friends, which is the old Freddy animatronics from the first movie. And then like a friend of hers is just like, hey, why don't you fix them yourself? And she's like, oh, that's a good idea. It's like, wait, why are you taking this like elective robotics class if that never like came across that character's mind? Like, you think it's like, oh, I'm going to take this robotics class so I can fix my friends and they can like do something. This robotics thing will not go fucking anywhere. This character will not use this skill to advance the plot. This plot only exists so Toy Chica can be at a place to kill a guy later in the film. And so all this goes down. Yeah, so Charlotte's up again. And then Charlotte, they find this thing at the old Freddy's where it's like a speak and spell kind of thing. And so Charlotte, as the puppet, lures Abby to the old location, the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 location, new to this movie, old in the timeline. But then you start thinking, well, you learn that Charlotte has been asleep this entire time. That's why she is like kind of new to the plot and is like just now doing things. How does Charlotte know about Abby? Because it's like, oh, we're your friend, come find us. Your friends are here. And how does Charlotte know about Abby? Because you also learn that Charlotte is confined to the restaurant. And then this kind of kicks into like a whole like motion of Charlotte that is a bunch of conveniences that leads to her being free. And it starts off with her luring Abby to the new location through the speak and spell. It's like, okay, well, how does Charlotte know Abby? How does Charlotte know Abby knows the old animatronics enough to manipulate her because she's been asleep this entire time? So it's not even like, oh, she's a ghost. She can know this stuff. No, she's been asleep this entire time. And how does she learn this information? Like, it's not like a thing where like Michael knows this information and passes it off to her. She just knows this for the sake of the plot moving forward. And it's like, it's not explained at all. So she goes, she meets Toy Chica. And she's like, oh, I missed you, Abby. Welcome back. I'm your friend. And so they talk, and then the scene ends. That's all it really goes. The next day, Vanessa comes over to talk to Mike at their house. And she has a conversation with Abby, and Abby's like, Toy Chica, help me make this. And it's a robot that she was working on, but it has a plastic mold of the old Chica, and that's never explained. That's not like a scene. She's like, oh, Chica helped me make this, but Freddy tried to help, but his fingers were too fat. And so you're like, okay, where did they get this plastic mold? How does Chica know to build this like small little animatronic? How would Charlotte even know to do that? Because you learn that Charlotte can like kind of hide herself in other animatronics, and she's been hiding herself in Toy Chica. But that doesn't, I guess, happen until later. But you learn that the puppet can control the toy animatronics. So like, how would Charlotte even know that? And so she's like, oh, and then Vanessa tries to tell this to Mike. And then Mike, like, uncharacteristically, like, shoves her off, where he's like, you don't know what you're talking about. Abby's a kid. Like, blah, 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 blah. But, like, Mike is, like, such an understanding brother in the first one and in the first half of this film, where it's like, if Vanessa is telling you this, like, why wouldn't you take her seriously? And he says this thing of, like, oh, I'm just trying to fix this family. I'm trying to fix you. And she's like, screw you, Mike. I'm going to go check it out myself. And then so she goes and checks it out herself, and the puppet captures Vanessa. And I don't remember if it's at this point in the movie or later on, but you learn that there's a computer, and Vanessa knows this code to unlock the perimeter, like the signal perimeter that's keeping all the animatronics there. And Vanessa knows the code to turn it off. So she uses like Vanessa and Abby as a hostage. She uses Abby as a hostage later and kidnaps Vanessa. So Vanessa will tell her the code so Abby can type it in. So it's like, okay. One, how does Charlotte know? Like, maybe being in the puppet and it having access to things, maybe she would know. But how does Charlotte know about this code? how does Vanessa know this code? Because she was a kid when the FNAF 2 location shut down, and she would never really need to know that stuff. And there's no like thing of like her looking through files, or like it's explained why she knows that stuff. She just knows it. And so they turn off this perimeter lock and they can escape the building. And like this is like when the animatronics are like kind of on like this, like this is when the animatronics are actively doing things. Like the animatronics don't show up until like 30-40 minutes. I don't know, this whole thing felt like 4 hours, so I don't know if I can accurately judge. And I thought, oh, when the animatronics show up it'll be better. Nope, not at all. I was like still bored throughout this entire thing. And so the animatronics get free and they start going all these different places, and Vanessa's tied up, and Mike eventually tracks him down somewhere. Tracks him down somehow. I can't quite remember how. And then Vanessa's like, hey, we need to get into these systems to like track down all these animatronics and like stop them, because there's going to be bad stuff happening. And I think Charlotte at some point says she doesn't blame William for dying. She blames all the parents for like letting it happen. It's like, why would you not blame William? William is the guy who physically killed you. Whatever. And so stuff happens. that's like the best way to sum up this movie. It's like stuff happens, and then you kind of learn that like these toys aren't even going after like parents. They're going after just adults in general, even though she specifically said she wants to go after parents. And then there's like this whole Five Nights at Freddy's 2 gameplay thing with like the wizards that show up as like Mike's going through this thing. And I don't know, it just like felt like padding for this film that didn't need it. This thing's almost 2 hours long. It does not need to be 2 hours long. And so stuff happens. They kind of stop the toy animatronics, and they all end up at this house. Oh, the best friend for Mike, that black guy, shows up to give Vanessa a ride when her car shuts down. Literally the only other time he's in this film. And then Toy Freddy goes to Faz Fest, and that's the only time you see that. And the Toy Chica goes to the robotics fair and kills Wayne Knight, and that's the whole culmination of that entire plot line. It's like nothing was really gained. That entire plot line just exists for Toy Chica to kill Wayne Knight. And then the person who voices Toy Freddy in this film voices Freddy in other things. He did Funtime Freddy in Sister Location and Glamrock Freddy in Security Breach. He just does his Glamrock Freddy voice again, and I wish he came up with something new, because that bothers the ever-living shit out of me. Whatever, small little nitpick there. And so the culmination of this film ends at Mike's house. But then, because Vanessa knows that the puppet is going after Abby at this point in the film. I think that's her name. Little sister character. And so Mike's friend drives her there and doesn't go inside with her, even though she's like, I really need to get to this house because shit's going down. I doubt she explains like exactly what's happening, but she's like, I really need to get there now. He doesn't go inside. Because why? Because he wasn't there that day for filming. I don't know. And so there's kind of this like, the puppet is hiding in Toy Chica and possesses Abby. Oh, and then Mike meets Skeet Ulrich's character, which is Henry Emily, which is Charlotte's dad. And I don't know where he's going to be like quite in this film. He's only in it for 10 minutes. Who gives a shit? Gives him a new music box. And so there's like a confrontation between the puppet and Vanessa, where she's like, I don't really like blame you. Like, you should be helping us because parents kind of ruined your life too. Your dad ruined your life, so you should be helping me. And she's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And they kind of do a thing. Mike comes in, turns on the music box. Mike's friend still does not come into the house, even though he is confirmed to be outside, because all the stuff that happens afterwards. Oh, Mike goes to the FNAF location like, hey guys, can you help me please? And then that's it. And then all the toy animatronics are about to come in, and Mike closes the music box. Mike opens the music box. The puppet leaves Abby. Abby doesn't die for whatever reason, even though we've seen the last person that the puppet possessed die. Abby doesn't die. Whatever. And Mike closes the music box for whatever reason. all the toys show up, and there's like a little bit of a thing where I guess Michael Afton has control of the toys now. So Michael Afton shows up, and he's like, you're my sister. And then there's like a guy behind us in the theater going, oh, maybe he's not familiar. Who cares? The guy was like in one other fucking scene. Michael Afton. And so he's like, we're his children. Like, you can't escape him. And that's like a kind of a reoccurring thing. He's like, we got to fulfill his legacy. And Vanessa's like, no, I have a new family, and we're like trying to move past all of that. And I'm leaving all that behind, and I found my new family. It's a really sweet, kind of a sweet moment that's like ruined by a different thing later. And then all the original animatronics from the first film show up inexplicably and destroy the toy animatronics. Michael runs outside. The black dude clotheslines him, and it's kind of confirmed that Michael gets away anyways. And so the real, actual, physical animatronics from this film show up, even though Mike says, "Oh, I don't know where they are. Like, they're not here anymore." So it's never confirmed like where they actually are, and they're like actually the physical animatronics. They're not just like the ghost kids like showing up as those animatronics and they turn back into ghosts as they like move on. They're the physical animatronics, which makes no sense. And so one of the animatronics is like, "Hey, Mike, when I go away, I won't be able to hold him back anymore." And he's like, "What the fuck does that mean?" And we're sequel baiting for Springtrap, which is released. He's revealed in the post-credit scene of this film. And so like, they're like, okay, it's all over. And they start to go outside. And Mike is like, to Vanessa, is like, "You're fucking crazy. You leave me and my family alone. Get away from us. Yeah, we don't want anything to do with you." Which is like so uncharacteristic after she was like, "No, I'm trying to move past everything. And this is my new family. And fuck you, Michael. I don't want to like live to my dad's legacy." So Mike uncharacteristically just like tells her to like fuck off. And it's like so baffling. And it leads to a moment, I guess, of like weakness for her, where the puppet then possesses Vanessa, and then credits. So the only thing that ever got resolved in this film is the toys got introduced and the toys got destroyed. And I guess the kids from the first one moved on, even though it was kind of implied that they did that in the first movie anyway. Like, the puppet wasn't resolved. Like, all of Vanessa's stuff wasn't resolved. Mike is like hardly a character in this film. Like, Skeet Ulrich, the Henry character, is like only in this for 10 minutes. And then they introduce like Springtrap. So they're teasing a next film, but they still have to resolve all the stuff that they did in this film. Granted, not a whole lot of stuff resolved, but like, is like Five Nights at Freddy's 3 going to be Vanessa possessed by the puppet? And they have to figure that out. And then Springtrap shows up. That sounds like a fucking mess. So like, what do we do in a third film? Because you didn't resolve anything in your second film. It was just a bunch of padding. Hey, remember this? Hey, remember that? Vanessa gets possessed by the puppet. Movie ends. Huh? That's why I'm saying, like, it almost needs to be 20 minutes longer and 20 minutes shorter. Like, cut 20 minutes somewhere and resolve all the puppet stuff in 20 minutes, where like Mike comes to terms of like, "Oh no, I've been treating you so wrong and I'm so sorry." And like, maybe the kindness of like that like releases her from the puppet, and then maybe the puppet becomes good, and it's like, "Oh, I've seen the error of my ways," yada 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 yada. But this movie is a mess. As I said, I don't recommend this film. It's a series of scenes where characters have dialogue and nothing of consequence truly happens. And you can kind of see the plot lines of like, maybe somebody in the beginning and something at the end. And they're like, "Oh, we got to fill this stuff in between." Like, I want to introduce Wayne Knight as like a kind of asshole teacher character. I want him to die. Well, how do I get to point A to B? And that's kind of like what the entire plot feels like. Scott Cawthon should not write another screenplay at all. I did not enjoy this movie really at all. As I said, the animatronics were kind of cool. That's really about it. They're physical animatronics. But yeah, that's what I think about Five Nights at Freddy's. And hopefully I'll have like more positive review. I just like, here soon. It's one of those things where like, this movie just hasn't left my head of how baffling it is. So I do not recommend this film. Go watch one battle after another, I guess. I don't know. Go see something else. Or stay home and watch films like I do most of the time. Yeah, I think it's gonna be very rare that you're gonna see me really like talk about newly released films. I don't really go to the theaters all that often, even though I really like to. And when I do, it's like my local theater, like my local small theater that shows older movies anyway. So I wanted to go see this because it was Five Nights at Freddy's. Me and my girlfriend enjoy Five Nights at Freddy's. As I said, I play the games. I like the first movie, even though I heard like the very bad critical reception of this film. I at least wanted to go see it to maybe hope I get some enjoyment out of it, and I did not. Because yeah, as I said, I was just bored. Hi, Jack. Little hello from Jack. This video, but yes, I was bored the entire time. There's not really I guess there is a plot and there is kind of a story, but all these character motivations like don't make sense, and characters only show up when they're needed and to help like move along this very thin plot line. So those are my thoughts on Five Nights at Freddy's 2. If you saw the film, let me know maybe what you thought. But yeah, or if you have any other things you want me to check out, I'm open to anything. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.